everybody? Welcome to BioS3 Raw TV. Today we have, right now, you guys see him right now, Dorian Yates. The Shadow is his former nickname. We're not going to go with that now because he's no longer involved in the bodybuilding world. Dorian, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. And, we're just going to start. We'll jump right into it.
Thanks for having me on, man.
I saw the London Reel episodes and, the last one with the bike riding up the mountain and stuff and the yoga. How has your mind changed about training now compared to what it was years ago?
Well, I still got the same drive to want to train and want to push myself and, to that edge. But I can't do it with weights now because of my injuries. As people that follow the sport, when I was competing, they know I had a bicep injury and a tricep tendon detachment on the left arm. And when I retired, I also had some problems with my rotor cuff, left rotor cuff. And after I retired, I was still doing weight training, but I wanted to try some other stuff as well. So I got some friends that were into the MMA and grappling and stuff like that. So I did some training with those guys. I didn't do too much contact. It was mainly some grappling and a lot of conditioning work that they did because I like to keep my cardio very good. But some of the grappling, I fell over and detached the supraspinatus, which is obviously already pretty badly damaged from all the years of heavy lifting. I have had that reattached twice surgically, and it came off again. Wow. So I got a torn rotor cuff, a torn tricep tendon, and a bicep on the left side. And I've been kind of working around it for a few years, working around it, trying to do the training which I enjoyed, but it's very, very limited. And it's got more and more limited. And it's kind of like I came to the conclusion that this kind of training, for me with my injuries, if I didn't have injuries, it wouldn't be the case, but I do have injuries and I have to respect that. I felt that it was not really a positive anymore. It could have been a negative. It could have been further damaging the joint. And, I'm 55 now. I don't want to be like 65 years old and I can't scratch my head or lift my hand up or something like that. So I was able to train back and legs, but, no point to train back and legs really hard and then you can't train the rest of the upper body. And, I had some tightness around my hips, the lower back. No real bad problems, but, it's many, many years of heavy training. You do tighten up. So I thought about that and I spoke to a few people and I thought yoga would be a really good idea to get that mobility back, to get the flexibility, to get the mobility back around those joints. And I started doing it and I fell in love with it. It's not just a physical exercise, it's kind of a spiritual energy type exercise as well. And a new challenge, like for me, I could do yoga for the rest of my life and there's no way I could ever max that out. It's like you can just keep doing more and learning more and progressing. And I've always been big into having good cardio. Even when I was, 300-pound bodybuilder, I think my cardio was pretty good for a guy of that size. So I've always worked on that and always try to keep, like my resting heart rate is high 40s, is like 46, 48 in the morning. So that's really good level cardio. So I do some high intensity cardio. So it's like intervals, 10 or 15 minutes bursts, but very intense. Some days I go on longer bike rides up the mountains, as you've seen, which is, it's cardio and it's fun as well. So that's what I'm doing. I mean, if I could do some weight training without further irritating my injuries, sure, I'd love to, but it doesn't seem to be really possible at the moment or beneficial. So I do other things and, for all the young, enthusiastic guys out there who want to know, am I upset in some way that I'm not as big as before, or do I want to have that physique? If I could have it for free without even training, no, thank you, because it's not practical for what I need to do these days. A huge amount of muscle mass is not practical for a lot of things, a lot of activities, a lot of daily life. So it was what I did as a sport, as a competition, and I don't do that anymore. Now I'm interested in being healthy, being functional and active and fit, and that's what I train for. Although, I don't have that physique anymore. but it doesn't diminish what's up here, that created the physique, and that can help other people create their physiques and their diet and their training and everything. So consider myself more of a teacher when it comes to bodybuilding than actually doing it myself,
Yeah, I think it's a good message because, I mean, I'm 41 now. I've had a pec tear, I've had a rotator cuff tear, a bicep tear, and the other bicep has tendonitis. So it's like you're trying to train around these injuries, but here you still feel 18 years old. You know, I mean, you get in the gym and you warm up. It's almost like I feel a little good today. You start going forward, and next thing you know, a week later, you still can't move your arm. So I've done yoga class, and I've done one class, and it beat the shit out of me so bad that I literally had a hard time moving for like 2 weeks for one class. So I can see how it's, you know.
The first time I went for a class, you know, I was doing, was holding a warrior pose, I think. It's like a lunging pose.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how long you had to hold the poses. I thought, you know, like 5 seconds. It was like a long time, you know. And I literally, my legs, you know, 29, 30-inch quads or something, just gave way. And I fell on the floor. And the ladies doing yoga just looked at me and went, that's so tough, eh? So, yoga's great. I mean, if I'd been able to do some when I was bodybuilding, I think it would have helped a lot with the with posing and mobility and stuff, and maybe reduce some injuries. But, you know, the 30-year-old Dorian that wanted to be Mr. Olympia wouldn't have had an S, you know, wouldn't have.
Do you think training like a bodybuilder causes imbalances like later in life? Because I feel like when I was younger, I could train like a bodybuilder. I didn't really have any issues. But now I feel like doing certain things cause these imbalances that later on at 41 start showing up that you didn't even know you had.
Yeah, I mean, the shoulder injury is the most common thing from all the pressing and bench pressing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going for so much rehab now and injury management and stuff. I'm starting to learn what the most common injuries are in bodybuilding and what causes them. And I think eventually if you're just building up the external musculature, you know, like pecs, delts, lats, and you're not working the smaller muscles like the rotor cuff that stabilize the shoulder and so on, sooner or later you're going to get an injury.
Yeah.
That's what I say, sooner or later. So, you know, if I could go back now and with the knowledge I have now, perhaps I could have avoided those injuries. But I think if you're just doing solely lifting and going heavier and heavier and heavier, you will get some kind of imbalance. You will get the shoulders kind of coming forward and putting strain on the tendons and so on. So I always did a little bit of stretching, especially for quads and hamstrings and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really have any lower body injuries. So perhaps more stretching and mobility work on the upper body would be, you know, it doesn't bring you any muscle, right? So as bodybuilders, we're not initially very interested in that. Oh, screw this. Why am I spending time doing this? This is not making me bigger. But in the long term, like if you're injured and you can't train, you're going to lose muscle, man. You're going to go backwards, let alone you're not going to be able to go forward. You're probably going to go backwards, or best case scenario, you're going to maybe maintain, but you're not going to go forward. So avoiding those injuries is very important. And of course, when you're in your 20s and so on, you feel that you're indestructible and you don't need all this. And maybe you don't for a while. You may get away with it for a while, but eventually it's going to catch up with some injuries. You know, thankfully, I stopped doing free squats around the time I was British champion, so I was about 26 years old.
You had a tear? And I already had, was it a tear or a hip injury?
I had one tear on the right hip on the fascia, and I didn't really feel like the exercise was really ideal for my structure. Mm-hmm. But of course I did it and I persevered because that's what everyone said you had to do. And Tom Platz was the man when I was up and coming, you know. So and Tom Platz said you got to squat, so I got the flat powerlifting shoes and all that and squat like just everybody else in the gym until I got this injury and I'm like, I can't do these squats at the moment. So I tried the squatting on a Smith machine so I could keep my back very upright and get all the stress on the quads as opposed to too much on the glutes and the lower back. And that worked very well for me. That along with leg press and hack squats, which I pretty much always pre-exhaust with leg extensions anyway. So, you know, touch wood, I don't have any problems with my spine, with my discs and so on, which is fairly common. So
Ronnie Coleman has those injuries.
Yeah, I have a little wear on the L5, but as long as I don't squat or, you know, do anything heavy overhead, which I don't now, I don't see that I'm going to have any problems with that, especially doing the yoga and keeping everything mobile, you know.
Now, the pink elephant in the room, everybody's talked about it. You've discussed it. I mean, Jay Cutler's even come out and talked about it a little bit now. And that is, why do you think today's bodybuilder, oh no, this is, why do you think people are so obsessed with steroids now more than ever? Like when I first started training, you didn't even get around steroids for probably the first 4 or 5 years, and like you'd be in the gym busting your ass, and the guys in the gym would have to see you literally drop weights on yourself week after week and, bring your gallon of water of jug and really be pushing for 2 or 3 years before they even offered you any advice about it. And it seems like now today they get a gym membership Monday, Tuesday they're online trying to buy steroids.
Well, I'm just finishing up my autobiography now. That's going to be out sometime later this year, and I kind of go through this there. How was the scene when I was coming up, when I was a kid, and about the steroids and everything. I remember asking people in the gym, and they were kind of cagey,
Yeah.
They don't want to tell the young guys, nah, come and see me when you're a bit old, you've been training a bit more. It was kind of like an inner circle type of thing that you had to break into before you get the information and access and everything. And as far as information you could read, apart from the word of mouth in the gym, there was little bits in the magazines, a little bit conservative advice in Muscle Builder, I remember. Which was Joe Weider's magazine. There's a few doctors and people writing in there. And then, of course, you had the Underground Steroid Handbook, which is just like a photocopied, stapled together book.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was like gold. That was like gold dust when I was a kid. That was the only book out there by Dan Duchesne. And it wasn't exactly conservative, it was pretty cavalier in its approach and advice and everything. So that's really all that was there. And then the advice in the gym. I started taking stuff before my first contest, about 12 weeks before my first contest, and that was after a year and a half that I'd been training in the gym. But I mean, the stuff that I was taking is probably what some of the fitness girls now, so I think it's a lot to do with the internet, because you got so much information on the internet, almost to the point where there's too much information, and a lot of it is false.
Right.
So, I mean, I've been on there and seen courses that I'm supposed to have taken, or other people like Ronnie and Arnold and all these other people, all these courses. I mean, I don't know where this information is supposed to have come from, because the only ones that really know what they took were probably the guys that took it, But I was pretty horrified that kids might be looking at that and thinking it's real and try to copy it, because I mean, what I saw was insane. It was like probably 20 times more than I was taking, and half the stuff I hadn't even heard of it. So I actually did an interview with Muscular Development that I was working for at the time, and we published what I used from Mr. Olympia, and of course a lot of people didn't want to believe it. Well, it's up to them. I didn't get paid to do it. I had no coercement to do it. I just did it for myself, because I thought, well, shit, kids are reading stuff. Dorian did this, Dorian did that, and it's not true. So let me put the record straight, and people are going to take it or leave it,
Yeah, it's definitely different. Like I was actually at a barbecue a couple years ago, and I sat down, and it was like a wedding for the girl I was dating at the time. I didn't know anybody there, and this guy sits down and he goes, "Hey man, I take 400 milligrams of Tren a week. What do you like to take?" And I was like, "What?" I looked at him. I'm like, I don't even know this guy's name, nothing. But it was so nonchalant about steroids, and I'm like, how do you even know I take anything? Like, what's it was very weird. And I kind of look back, and I'm like, some of these kids that are literally can order something online and have it shipped to the house with their parents' credit card, and they actually have these drugs in their hands from God knows where, who it came from, how it was made. And back when I started taking things, again, it was pharmaceutical brand. You could take very little and get great effects. It's crazy how the mindset has gone. Like, yeah, I'll worry about the training and the diet later. Let me get this stuff first.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a reflection on society as a whole. Everybody wants something for nothing now, and it seems to me like everyone wants to be famous.
Right, and they want it now, fast, like today.
But famous for what?
Right.
Famous for nothing. Famous, there's no substance to it, right?
Right.
If you've achieved something outstanding, and that brings you, that makes you famous or whatever you want to call it, then great for you, good luck to you. But you got everyone online now posting their pictures and their videos, and everyone wants everything instantly. And I think males now generally look on steroids as a cosmetic enhancement, pretty much the way girls would look, like maybe taking Botox or getting breast implants or something like that. It's like, fuck it, I want that physique, and this is the quickest way to get it. So I'm going to do it. I mean, you can look at, for instance, in the hip hop game.
Yeah, Dr. Dre, 50 Cent.
Look, 20 years ago, everyone's looking skinny or normal, and now the guys are all jacked, and I can see a lot of them are taking stuff. The same thing with the movie industry, especially in India, where they got what's called Bollywood, which is like the Indian version of Hollywood, which is massive revenue. I mean, all the guys in there used to be skinny guys that spun around singing songs and dancing and stuff. Now they all got pecs and abs, and they're lean and they're working out and everything. So I think it's just part of the culture where that's the look, and people want it quick. They don't want to wait around.
Yeah, it's just insane. Like, again, I've been through 25 years of training in the industry, and I've seen it kind of come around. And it never it blows my mind every time when you hear like a 16-year-old kid talking about taking something, and I'm like, how long have you been training for? He's like, oh, like 6 weeks now, and I'm like, wow, okay, cool, like it bothers me, I guess.
The thing is, they don't really concern themselves much. I don't get a lot of people really asking me, what's the best way to train now? What's the best way to train? What's the best way to diet? I mean, that's all secondary now.
Yeah.
It's like, what should I take, and how much should I take, and how long for? Of course, if we competed, we all did this, but you got to learn your trade. You got to learn how to train properly. You got to learn how to eat, learn how your body reacts before you think about it. And everyone, it's up to everyone what they want to do. If they want to get in a Ferrari and drive into a brick wall and kill yourself, it's all up to you, right? But my personal thing was, I'm doing this because I'm competing, and to compete in competitive bodybuilding on an even playing field, I've got to take steroids because everyone else does. Otherwise, I can be at a huge disadvantage.
Right.
And when I'm no longer doing that competition, I don't want to take steroids anymore because, I'm taking it for a competition, not to, try and boost my ego or try to compensate for some insecurity because I'm not big enough or whatever it is,
Right.
And there's the other thing. I believe there's a whole psychological addiction with steroids.
Absolutely.
Because I tell people this when they contemplate going on. I said, man, you're going to jump on a merry-go-round. You're going to be on a merry-go-round that you won't be able to get off. So you're going to think about that before you get on there.
Yeah.
Because you're going to take stuff and you're going to get a boost and you're going to feel stronger and you're going to bigger and you're going to feel more confident. Maybe people are going to treat you with more respect. They're going to treat you differently, blah, 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 blah. You're going to be feeling good, right? When you come off that stuff, you're going to lose all that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. You lose all of it. Yeah.
I'm glad you say that. I say that and people tell me I'm nuts. Like, no, you can keep most of it. I'm like, listen, you are not keeping most of it.
You're going to lose all of it eventually. So, can you handle that?
Right.
If you can't, why jump on that merry-go-round in the first place? Because you're setting yourself up for problems.
They get addicted to the actual, the being the new person that they are. Like, they change their reality. They become something that they're not, and then they become identified to that. So when you take that away, well, now who are they? That's who they were. It was their whole identity. Like Kevin Levrone would literally just jump off everything and then go down to 180 pounds, and he did not care. Like, he didn't care one bit when he stopped taking stuff.
It's fair enough, but it's like, let's say as a girl, she had some breast implants. Right? Now she's walking down the street, guys' heads are turning and all this stuff. She feels better. Self-confidence boost. And, you're going to say to her, hey, you're going to zip those things out now and take them out. She ain't going to want to do that. No. Yeah. So it's the same thing with the guys, especially young guys, and, steroids do have effects, side effects or negative effects in the body. And could be somewhat genetic, depending on who's taking it. But it's definitely dose and length of time taken dependent, just like smoking cigarettes is not good for you. You might smoke for 5 years and give it up. Maybe it's going to have no negative effect. You smoke for 10 years and give it up. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if you smoke for 15, 20 years, we all know what's going to happen, I'd draw the same kind of similar analogy with taking steroids.
Interesting. Yeah, nobody's ever kind of put it in that kind of context where it's like the longer you do, the more you're testing fate as you're, pushing it. I guess it's like that with anything, though.
And the older your body is, the greater the chance of side effects, I believe. So as you get older, that risk is increasing more and more. And we see a lot of guys in 40s and 50s having a heart attack because, I'm not saying that's the only thing involved, because there's so many other factors involved and so many other substances that athletes can and do take that could contribute to that. But however, there is a very high percentage of top level and professional bodybuilders that have health problems in middle age.
Yeah, a lot of them don't talk about it, which is why a lot of the young kids, they blame it on anything else. Genetic predisposition, the sun gave me this, like anything that, besides being like, look, here's the deal. Like I'm fully aware that if I get some kind of strange cancer, it could have been the growth hormone that I took for 10 years. You know what I mean? It could have been, a host of different things. But, I mean, I think more people should talk openly about it and not really give the blueprints on how to do stuff, because that just, I have people that are trainers that get people that hire them, and they say, okay, here's your training program, here's your diet. They're like, yeah, I don't need any of that stuff. Just give me my cycle. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of have to address the pink elephant in the room. But
the thing is, when you're a trainer, which I am to some degree, but it's not my, I train some people. I got my certification, DYHIT. I certify people, just going out to Golds next week doing that. So I do that. I help a couple of people for contests. I do some training. Well, it's not my business, it's not my main thing that I rely on. If somebody's relying on it, they've got to keep their customers happy.
Right.
And I can tell you, when I give people a recommended course that I give them if they're training with me for taking steroids and growth hormone or whatever, they usually seem pretty disappointed because they're expecting more, yeah?
Right.
And if I wasn't who I was, maybe I would feel like, shit, I got to give these guys, just give them more stuff because that's what they want.
Right.
That's what they want to hear, So a lot of time it's just what people give you what you want to hear,
Yeah.
And even those guys that are getting you ready for a contest, maybe they're selling it as well, so it's in their benefit to sell it a bit more,
Whole other discussion with that. So
there's a whole industry out there that I believe is a bit parasitical, you got a ton of so-called coaches and gurus getting people ready for contests, and there's a whole industry there of these people making money. I mean, they're making the money. The competitors are not making the money.
Right.
Well, I would like to ask, who the fuck are these people? Are you?
There's some of them I just had a discussion the other day, like the guy that I saw talking about his client, he did one competition and he won, but there was nobody in the competition, and he had someone do everything for him, and now he's a coach. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're like 19 years old, you did one show, had somebody do everything for you. How are you coaching people? Like the things that come up in a contest part with someone's body, you have no idea how to tackle any of that. Like, and
not a competition, no. So you got the blind leading the blind, and the best case scenario is you're just going to lose money. But the worst case scenario is, you maybe damage your health.
Yeah. Which
be cautious if you're going to have a coach. But for me, the whole, one of the beautiful things about bodybuilding that I liked was it was a soul endeavor.
Yeah.
For me, that was part of it. Part of it was trying to figure out, how to diet, how to train, how to take the anabolics. The whole thing was all like, a soul effort. It wasn't a team effort.
Yeah.
And, if you listen to your body, if you make notes, everything I did, I wrote down, and slowly over time, you can kind of find what works, what doesn't work, and get yourself a plan together. I mean, my preparation for the Mr. Olympia varied really, really minutely over those whole 6 years, because I pretty much had the game down,
Mm-hmm.
Some things like an injury or illness or something, I couldn't, anticipate that, so that would throw a spanner in the works and have to deal with it. But apart from that, I pretty much knew what was going to happen because I'd done it before.
Yeah. Which, again, I've actually talked to people that, like you said, you had that thing that locked in. Like, you don't know what's going to come up during a prep. Like you said, injury and illness, whatever. And these people that are training people now, they've never done more than one prep, and it was actually like nothing happened. So they don't even think twice about it. But now you get somebody who's like, look, I got this disc in my back. And they're like, yeah, just go ahead and squat. You'll be fine. Wear a belt. And you're like, what? Like, people are, I don't think they're getting harmed yet to the point where people are going out there suing people and talking about it. But the more and more of these trainers that pop up, it's coming in the future. I mean, somebody's going to really hurt someone. You heard the coaches with the guys pumping guys full of diuretics in their rooms and almost killing them. But they don't talk about that stuff. It's not talked about.
Steroids, we know they have possible long-term effects. Right. Diuretics, they'll kill you right now.
Yep.
They can kill you right now. They can give you an electrolyte imbalance so that your heart stops beating, and that's it. It happened to a competitor of mine, Mohammed Benaziza, in the 90s when they used to have these European tours, which were like weeks and weeks long, and they'd have 2 or 3 contests every weekend, and then a few days off, and that would go on for a long time. So guys were doing extreme things to try and stay in shape, and he ended up getting massive cramping and having a heart attack. And there's been quite a few incidents like that.
Yeah.
So if you prepare properly, you don't really need diuretics. And please, if you're going to use a coach, really look at the credentials and what they have done themselves.
Yeah.
But preferably, like, you want to be a bodybuilder, learn to do it yourself, man. That's part of the journey. Otherwise, you're going to be reliant on your coach. I remember I asked one pro bodybuilder when I was competing. I won't mention his name because I don't want to embarrass him. But, potential guy that was my competition, So he's asking me some questions about, what I did. And I said, hey, man, what the hell did you do at this contest? Because this contest, you looked amazing. So why don't you do what you did at that contest?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, but I had a coach and I fell out with that guy now. And he's not speaking to me. I'm speaking to him. So I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah.
He didn't write nothing. Just totally reliant on what he was being told. And that's maybe a personality thing as well. I couldn't do that. I'm not saying I'm an island. No, nobody's an island. So I took advice, or I listened to advice from many different sources and many different people. But ultimately, I'm the one that had to decide whether to keep this, use this, or throw this out and what to do. I made that decision. Thanks, everybody, for your input. But ultimately, I'm responsible here for, what I'm going to present on the stage.
I think, again, it comes down to wanting it faster. They figure that, like you said, you have to take time. It took me probably a good 3 years to really learn how to train before I competed. That's 3 years they don't want to waste. They want to get in the gym in 6 months, be ready to go on stage. And they figure, well, somebody that's already done it or does this for a living can get me there faster. But when you haven't learned anything and you go with a different coach and that coach has something so totally different, it's like you start from scratch. Whereas if you'd started from scratch in the first place, by the time you get to that point, you'd already know how to manipulate your own body. The last 3 or 4 competitions, 5 competitions I didn't have a coach. I did it specifically because I wanted to make sure that I could manipulate things the way that I needed to. And things came up and went awry and whatever. But, it was one of those things where it was like, well, I had asked a coach before and he said, well, eat this, do that. And it didn't have the right effect because he wasn't at the competition with me. I can see what's happening to my body. So if I need something, I need to be able to adjust it and make the changes based on what I'm seeing. And, I get it 100%. It's just a whole different mindset nowadays.
Well, my wife coaches people as well, and I do occasionally. I've had quite a few people come to us with just like, showing us what they were doing. And like, who the hell gave you this? Oh, my coach. Oh, okay. So then we have to totally change everything, and and in a few weeks they're much happier and looking better, and so on. So yeah, it's if you're going to take a coach, I would see what they've done personally, not which clients they claim to have trained, but what have they done themselves.
Right.
And choose somebody that's at least been there and done that a few times.
Right. Absolutely agree.